Camera number 411 is the Olympus IS3DLX. Could this be the best bridge camera ever? Let's find out. The Olympus IS3DLX is probably one of the most feature-rich bridge cameras that I've encountered, and I've used a few of them. On paper, they look to satisfy pretty much all my needs in terms of the different varieties of photography that I use. And one of the main reasons for this is because of its focal range. It features a 35 to 180 millimeter ED high resolution lens, and having looked at the images, maybe I'll just pop a couple up here where I've used it for macro and in its normal state, if you like, 35mm. I must say, very impressed with the quality. Normally with these bridge cameras there is a certain element of compromise when it comes to the lens, and indeed it's not perfect by any means, but for this type of, any type of photography really, it really could satisfy your needs if you just want the one camera and you don't want to be messing around with changing lenses. The camera does actually have a number of optional add-ons. 2 times or 1.5 I think times converter that screws into the thread, and that extends the range even further of the camera. And I think also there is another macro filter that again extends the macro functionality of this camera. I don't have those unfortunately, but let's just go through the camera other features. The battery is housed in the base of the camera, so let's just undo that, and you'll see it's powered by 2 CR123 batteries, and then we have to just make sure we screw that up. It's quite a springy door there, so just caution there. And then we turn the camera on around the side here, and then you can see that the camera actually extends to the 35mm range. To extend the lens further, we have the 2 rocker buttons, tele and wide, so that's the widest, so let's just extend. That's at 50, that's at 70, that's at 100, and then that's at 180. While we're on the front here, the 2 little buttons below, we have the macro function, and if we press that button, oops, if I can, there we go, you'll notice it comes in. In fact, if we zoom in here, you'll see the macro functionality can bring you within just under or just over half a meter, which is a very useful distance. And you do have the ability to use that macro functionality over a variety of focal lengths. So it looks like it's probably about 100 through to 35. So again, that's an incredibly useful. You don't have just one macro and you have to kind of move the camera. Rather, you can actually stay in one position, and then depending on your framing, you can actually move that. And you do that with the rocker button, and it will always stay within that when it's in macro mode. Nice feature I like about the macro mode is it stays, so you have to turn it off, and then you get a readout here on the panel that it's off. We also have another feature here, a little power focus button. Basically what that does is essentially disengages the auto focus, and you then can manually focus using these 2 rocker buttons. So if I can demonstrate that, I'll try. Press that button, and then you see it's just focusing, not zooming in and out. That's actually just the focus. So again, an incredibly useful feature, particularly if you're in a difficult situation and the focus is struggling. You can disengage that and then manually focus. So you can't turn the lens as you would normally, but you do have these 2 rocker buttons to do that. So turning our attention to the next button, we have the flash pop-up button, and to control the different flash modes, which there are a few, we do this at the back with a dedicated flash button and the rocker button at the front here, which also has the shutter button. And generally speaking, you have two modes, auto mode and auto S, which is different in that it has a red eye reduction, so there's an additional feature there. In program mode, we also have a third flash mode. Let's just see if we can get that up. Fill-in flash. And that does seem to be only available with program mode, which you'll notice also has ESP. It's a form of metering that Olympus developed. I suppose it's really essentially a matrix metering mode where we'll take in a number of areas on the image and average the light meter reading. That's a very simple explanation, but that seems to be the case. So that's the flash. We have our on-off button, and then we have a little button for remote control, which I do have somewhere here. Here we go. Circular remote control. So again, if we activate that, which again we get indication on the liquid crystal display, and then if we press the button, hopefully it will set the timer and take the image. There we go. Just do that again. There we go. Okay, so again we have to turn that off. Camera strap lug there. Over the other side, a button which allows us to use spot metering, which is very useful. Again, another feature not always seen in these bridge cameras, but certainly in the IS. I think the IS 1000 had it, I'm not sure, but certainly the 3 does. Just on the name actually, the IS3 is also known as the IS 3000. That seems to be the similar or same camera, I think. Again, I could be happily corrected there. Slider for an external flash if we want to. Olympus did provide, I think it was a GX40 or something like that. And then over the other side we have the latch for the film camera door, and we put our film in, DX coding you notice there, but no provision sadly to alter the coding on the film. And then we have to tuck it in. Slightly different type of film mechanism here, but you have to put it right up to the end and under this little red latch here as well, so the film has to go really straight under there. Once it's in, you'll hear the camera trying to, there we go, quite noisy, but it will then wind the film on. So going through the modes, we've touched on program mode. We then press the button, and again we have to use the rocker switch, which also is the shutter button, and so we can toggle through those. We can go through aperture priority, and we alter our aperture with these two rocker buttons. So you'll see the aperture changing there. Press the mode button, we'll go to shutter priority, and you'll notice it doesn't do anything because we have a dedicated rotary switch round here, the rocker button, which will change the shutter speed. Now why have they done that? Well, maybe because if we go to the next mode, the manual mode, we now have two separate buttons to alter both. We don't have to press another button. So we change our aperture or change our shutter speed. So like that very much. Definitely a thumbs up in that feature. But some might not like that, but I do. Okay, manual mode, let's go on and go back now to, we have nighttime mode, which will employ some flash, fill-in flash. And then we have landscape mode, portrait, and sports mode. You'll notice as well that the drive mode changes depending on which you choose. So for example, on sports mode, you may have noticed that the drive mode has gone to continuous, whereas if we choose portrait, we go back to single. So with those programs, the drive does change, But we can of course change that manually if we like with this button here on the bottom, and we can change that to continuous. And we do have a third one, a double exposure, where the camera, I believe, I haven't had the opportunity to try it, but will take into consideration the exposure. So that's nice, if it does do that indeed. So double exposure, very good. But that will finish when, I don't know if I can, no. When the two, it's only limited to 2 photographs, and then it will cancel. Otherwise we can cancel it by choosing, there we go. There we go, you can see that's changed now. When you look through the viewfinder, on the right hand side you get the full range of information, or green activation light if you like, that confirms focus, and then all the other information is reflected in that on the right hand side. So again, you can really immerse yourself while looking through this quite bright, not the brightest, but certainly sufficient to compose a really good image. The data back feature is altered via these 3 buttons. That's not really of any interest to me, but if you want to use it, probably best to look at the manual, because you have to choose a mode and then set the time, etc. One feature I almost forgot to mention is the ability to do a zoom while the exposure is being taken. So the zoom focus can be either retracted or extended while we take an image. And the way we accomplish that is to put the camera in nighttime mode. So let's just do that. Oops. There we go. Oh, I've gone past it, sorry. There we go, put that in nighttime mode. And the idea is that we put our finger halfway, press the button halfway down to get exposure, and then while pressing the telephoto or wide angle, and then take the image. Now you see it didn't work on that occasion, and there is one restriction. The exposure has to be less than 1/3 of a second. So clearly the camera has to be on a tripod, and it has to be quite low, the light, 1/3 of a second. And then we can, as I say, press the button, shutter button halfway, and then we can extend or retract the lens while actually taking the exposure, producing this kind of zoom effect. So that's a very nice feature to see included. Unfortunately I didn't get opportunity to use it, but it is there if we want it. Nothing on the base apart from a tripod mount. And oh yes, there is, beg your pardon, a mid-roll rewind button. So that's nice. So you've probably sensed from the way I've described this camera really did impress me. As I say, I've used a number of these kinds of cameras and they're good, but as I say, there's compromises. And while this is true with this one, they really have compromised perhaps in the right areas and given this camera a really good lens and a number of features that really make it worth considering if you're into the market for having a bridge camera. So this has been the Olympus IS3 DLX, camera number 411.